introduction to one of my favorite people on earth, Mr. Stephen Oliver, who is with the Advisor Marketing Podcast. Now, Stephen is a true maverick, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Not only in our business, but I have to tell you, his clients universally love him, and they grow at rates that they wouldn't believe it's possible. Now, on this podcast, in each episode, Stephen is joined by various members of his team or special guests to share insider secrets to rapid growth and high net profits in your financial advisory practice. So I just want you to know you're in for a wild ride, new information, and a lot of exciting new future because of Stephen Oliver.
So welcome everybody. We're focusing today on secrets behind financial advisor marketing, and we're going to do quite a bit of Q&A today, and if there are questions, that is, and if not, we've got Greg. We've got extensive material to cover here, as usual. 3 hours worth of material that we end up trying to cover in 35 or 40 minutes, right?
Absolutely. We end up wanting to go over most of the time, especially with questions.
Exactly, and frankly, not getting to all of our points. Something I might point out to everybody just as we're getting started, and this is, I guess it is a pitch, but we have this great new program that has just come out. Mine's a little taped up there, but it's we call it Extraordinary Marketing for Financial Advisors, but it's DVDs, CDs. USB drive. Mindy can teach you how to do it, and she had to teach me how to open it up. But all of the material is also available on the website, fully digital. But it covers, Greg, what all, we covered the A to Z's of social media marketing, with predominant focus on LinkedIn and Facebook. We covered direct mail marketing with Travis Lee, 3D Mail, and some really interesting and creative marketing concepts and practices. We covered extensively all levels of online marketing, Google pay-per-click, website structure, development, and so forth. And we covered referral systems, all the different ways that you can create events, you can create pass-along tools, you can create methodologies to double, triple, or tenfold your referrals. We discussed positioning, creating credibility, becoming an author, doing your own book, and I'm missing a bunch of stuff there, but it's very, very, very comprehensive. Anybody who needs the most extensive foundation I think you'll ever get in how to market for financial advisors is that what is it? ExtraordinaryAdvisorMarketing.com. So at ExtraordinaryAdvisorMarketing.com, you can take a look at that package, and right now we've got it marked at 75% off of retail. What's this on the website for the webinar today, Mindy? It's
$597.
$597, not 20, whatever that
Yep.
would be charging for that.
And Mindy, you're putting that on the link on the chat round, right?
Yes, I will put that in the chat.
Yeah. So just to get us started, I'll throw that in. Shameless plug for what's a highly discounted but incredibly valuable program. Greg, we've drawn that from just between the three of us. We've got material from a number of other experts as well, but from hundreds of years of marketing cumulatively, and thousands, if not tens of thousands, of new clients, plugged into advisors' practices. So it's real world, what's working right now. And by the way, different from what I see a lot. I see a lot of, as you know, I'm terribly non-charitable about most of the coaches and consultants. I call it the bozo explosion, but I think it's accurate to say most people doing coaching and consulting fit broadly in one of several categories. One is they ran a successful practice years ago, or they ran a practice years ago, and it's kind of a distant nightmare, and now they're trying to teach other people what they think they did successfully or what they remember they did successfully. And as we know, the market has changed dramatically. I mean, the market changed dramatically during COVID, but the market has been changing dramatically from a standpoint of Google constantly updating their algorithms, Facebook being a horrible medium, wonderful medium, being politicized, etc. LinkedIn becoming better and better and better as I see it. Direct mail becoming more effective, not less effective. People have a weird idea about that. But that's one category. It's kind of, distant memory. Another category I see is people who have been successful themselves, but they never had to develop consistent, duplicatable, replicatable, teachable systems. Where what we've done is always do this. We've done it ourselves, face to face, belly to belly, but we've had to produce this through other people. We've had to produce it through staff members. We've had to do it, reproduce it through franchise owners. We've had to do it through clients. So we've created systems that are provable, that they're replicatable for other people. So it's not just my personality, your personality, Mindy's personality, whatever it might be. It's systems that sometimes are automatable, but always are replicatable, and can be reproduced by staff, can be reproduced by other people. And I think that's an important consideration, because just because you have an advisor who has, $1 million practice or $2 million practice, doesn't mean that he's a good coach for other people, and doesn't mean that he can replicate what it is that created it. A couple of the very successful people that we've worked with, coming in the gate, it was all their personality, because they didn't have any systems, right? It was just their force of personality, and their willingness to work hard. And that's, the work hard thing you can coach people onto, but the force of personality and you don't have to be a combination of, cross between Tony Robbins, Tom Hopkins, and I guess I should use Ken Fisher or whatever, the industry example, Jamie Dimon, to be successful at this. The other side of it, as we all know, is there's this explosion of people who learned how to do a little bit of search optimization, or people who learned how to do a little bit of Facebook stuff. I keep sending you ads that I come across online of, maybe they took a course with Russell Brunson, or they've done somebody else, and they've created the ultimate funnel for advisors and so forth. And sometimes what they've created is fine for what it is. It's just that what we know is you need a Parthenon, you need a broad base of marketing approaches and ways of getting not just your name out there, but to get new prospective clients to raise their hand and get them into your pipeline and convert them effectively. And most of those guys are kind of one-trick ponies, wouldn't you say? Where they've good, Greg.
Yeah. I mean, we get asked the question all the time, and to go along with what you're saying, we get asked the question all the time. Well, what's the one thing I should do? What's the one thing I really need to do to get my business growing? And that's completely off base in terms of the question that you'd answer. It goes along with what you're saying, is they want the magic pill, or they want the magic bullet. And unfortunately, in the industry, that's what a lot of people are promoting. The one thing that they should do, or even two or three things that should be going on. Well, I get my business through referrals, or I get my business through Facebook marketing, or I get my business through this. And what's going to happen is that builds a real unhealthy structure to build your business on.
Yeah. Mindy, you might make sure, I think we're good, but if anybody else is having trouble with audio, hearing, let us know. But as far as we can tell, one person had problems with audio, and I believe it was at their end, not at our end, because
I think we're all good.
Yeah, we're hearing each other well. You never know what kind of weird technical glitches can happen. It is, by the way, marketing principle number one, isn't it, Greg? Murphy's Law is real.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the reason why you never depend upon one thing, because the one thing almost always gets screwed up, right? If you look at, again, timeliness here, go back a couple of years, and if all of your traffic was being developed by steak dinners, steak lunches, filling a room with, what some not too charitably call plate lickers, and then hoping to convert them. And by the way, it's not that can't be done effectively, but if that was your only marketing strategy, and all of a sudden the world shuts down, and especially if you were someplace where it shut down for a long time, you could be dead in the water. And Greg, you know how many times we've had that, learned our lesson over the years is, we've got something that's working great, and if you don't have 5 other things that are also working to backstop that one thing goes sideways, right? We've had live event lined up that happened to be outdoors, and all of a sudden there's a tornado warning, indoors and the place floods. I had it one time at being in Colorado, the biggest blizzard of the century was during our big live event that was going to, make the month, make the quarter. And so, Murphy's Law is real. That's one reason to always have the Parthenon, have a bunch of different things feeding traffic for you at all times.
And so everybody understands the Parthenon. You've kind of got an example of it behind you, and Mindy does behind you. I guess I need one too, but so everybody understands what that means.
She's got the Parthenon in Nashville. I've got the facade of Wall Street.
Yeah, so everybody understands what we're talking about when we say Parthenon. So that metaphor doesn't miss for some people. Is in Greece, there's the Parthenon, which is the building that has many pillars, like what's behind you guys, and the pillars are what holds up the roof. And so when we mentioned that, we kind of stole that idea from Jay Abraham, who's if you haven't heard of him in marketing, he's a very good. It is a marketing guru, and we respect a lot of what he says.
Tony Robbins.
Stuff. Yeah, and the idea is that there needs to be enough pillars holding up your business, holding up your marketing. So that's the idea when we say the Parthenon. That's what we're referring to. It's a metaphor for having enough pieces of your marketing that are working at any given time.
Yeah. I was in a really interesting private meeting with Dan Kennedy and Jay Abraham for a day. What's it been? 3 years ago now. It all kind of runs together, but interesting and fertile minds that work from opposite directions. But you get a balance of the two. You've really got something to work with there.
Yeah, I was gonna, if I could interject something on what you were talking about in terms of the past things that haven't worked, like live events. That a lot of stuff can go sideways there. But what I'd warn everybody here, we have a lot of people probably on the call that are depending a lot on, for example, social media marketing or Facebook marketing, and everybody should be worried about that. It's very easy for Apple to do what they did recently, which is restrict access to Facebook for some of the demographic data that they used to depend on. And now I think, $1 billion in lost revenue Facebook had, but that $1 billion represents loss in ability for you to market directly to the clients that are Apple users through Facebook. And if you understand them,
which, by the way, demographic, you're going to say
the higher end. Yeah, that's the higher end of Facebook users. And I just got a message from, I do a lot of work with Rev Marketing, one of the website companies that we recommend. I just got a message today that Google is also restricting Android use. That's just come out today, that Google is now also restricting Android use. So if you're dependent on Facebook for a lot of your lead traffic, now it doesn't mean that Facebook can't work really well. I'm sure they're going to find a lot of other ways to invade people's privacy, but it can move, it can go up and down. And again, that's why we're so emphatic that this is important, that we need to have a lot of things going on at any given time. But that just came out today. It just CBS News.
And I like that statement you made, Greg, because it's as so much is in life, it's always a matter of perspective. As marketers, we want them to have as much data as humanly possible. We want them to track every click. We want them to track every movement. We want them, to know what they're thinking before they've had the thought. As citizens, it's kind of creepy how much they track you and know what you're doing and so forth. And so there's this constant balance of how do we utilize this material as marketers and use it ethically, appropriately, honestly, but how do we use this data appropriately? And part of it comes back, in fact, it's the wrong book I have on my desk here. I was thinking about, this is Seth Godin, Purple Cow. But he wrote a great book years ago. He kind of kicked off the internet way of thinking about marketing called permission marketing. And really that's what we want to be looking at is the beauty of online marketing is the amount of information that they know about you. Because the fact that they know a whole bunch about you means they're very unlikely to show you things in advertising that you're not interested in, and very highly likely to hit it on the head the vast majority of the time. Compare that to, let's say everybody watched the Super Bowl. Well, there's at least half of the ads on the Super Bowl are the things I have no interest in now or ever, right? But online, that rarely happens because Facebook and LinkedIn and Google know what I click. And so all of a sudden, the story I've told way too many times is the story of shopping for a professional video camera. And all of a sudden, B&H Video in New York and 42nd Street, I think, Video in New York and Amazon and B&H, all of a sudden they're following me everywhere. And I'm seeing Sony cameras, JVC cameras, Blackmagic cameras, everywhere I looked. Well, obviously I was interested in that. If I go online and I look at watches, I'm into watches, or if I look at cars, you're into Teslas. Yep. you all of a sudden you get all the Tesla news and you get all of that kind of stuff. So we really want them to know a lot about us because it makes our life easier. Think about what TV would be like when, and it's not if, when they get to the point where the feed that you're getting, the commercials you're getting in the show that you're watching were all specifically tailored for you based upon your search habit, based upon your other information. It really is a good thing to the point it becomes creepy. And of course, part of the problem is where it becomes
overlaps.
Yeah.
Overlap, right?
Oh, yeah.
But as business owners, we need to, even though in my personal life I don't necessarily love that. You love it because you get curated information, but you might not love it because it can. There's a lot of negative consequences potentially. But as business owners, the third part of that triangle is business owners. We need to understand it, take full advantage of it, not in a negative way, because hopefully we believe in our products and we'll believe in the service that we provide. If you believe in the service you provide, it's kind of like Zig Ziglar used to talk about when we talked about if you're a vacuum cleaner salesman and you should go sell your friends, and people would be like, well, I don't know if I want to sell my friends. Well, if you believe in your product, why wouldn't you sell all your friends? And so if we believe in our product, it's okay for us to maybe understand, well, not maybe, but understand all these pieces and make sure we do take full advantage of that information.
Yeah. And Greg, to get back on our subject here, I was thinking what we could do is kind of start with our process when we're working with a new client. And what we do is we take successful advisors, many of them are $1 million a year practices, and turn them into $2 and $3 million, $4 million a year practices. We, for people who are just starting out, or if they're making $40,000 a year, or if they're, maybe their practice revenue is, $100,000 a year. We're way overkill for people at that level. And now that extraordinary advisor marketing is right on track for somebody with a small practice who wants to get it to be a successful practice. But we work with the high six-figure, seven-figure practices, even eight-figure practices, to help them really tune in and organize their marketing process. But Greg, I thought what we would do is talk about the same thing we had outlined, obviously for this the other day, is when we work with a new practice.
It's Lee Milt here, and I'm delighted to interrupt you today and let you know that I've been working with Stephen Oliver for 10 or 15 years now. He's a great guy. I love all the research that he does. And I just wanted to let you know that if you're enjoying the content on this podcast, then you really want to make time to visit advisorwealthmastery.com. And why should you do that? Well, because you're going to receive 2 of his great books, and actually one of mine called Success is an Inside Job. You'll also get a lot of absolutely free material on growing your practice through effective marketing. So again, take the time to go to advisorwealthmastery.com.
Some of the things that we go through immediately, and that's part of why I had this out on my table, is my pet peeve about financial advisors, they're all so busy working to look like, act like, and be no worse than anybody else, that they're afraid to stand out, be unique. And this, this is a great book, Purple Cow by Seth Godin, but it's all about being unique and standing out. And that's one thing we start with. I always, before I ever talk to anybody, I always looked at their LinkedIn profile, and I looked at their website, and I look at everything they do. And some of them really stand out as, oh, this is an interesting person. They have interesting hobbies. It looks like they're professional and know what they're doing. But another book I like is 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, but he uses the example in that of the fat bald guy in the red BMW. You know, we've adapted that for advisors as the the bland gray guy in the behind the J.C. Penney's or in the J.C. Penney's suit where behind an oak desk is you don't want to be just the same as everybody else. What you want to do is stand out. One way to stand out is to niche. Another way to stand out is just to be interesting and colorful and have interesting hobbies and know interesting people and do interesting things. And we can talk about that more later. But Greg, one of the things we were talking about is we always start with the money laying around on the floor in a practice. And I forget who it was. It's one of our clients said that about me a few years ago. We had two funny quotes. One of them was, "I don't know, that guy sure seemed to find money laying around the floor I didn't know was there." And we had another guy, and this was a third party, unbeknownst to me conversation happening behind our back about somebody who wanted to look at working with. He says, "I don't know, that guy sure seems to turn shacks into mansions." Okay, I'll take that. But the money laying around the floor, let's talk about that. Is one piece of it is really poor prospect conversion and follow-up, right? So we see a lot of practices where, they get a lead, they make an outbound call to them, they get hold of them or they don't get hold of them, they call enough times that they feel like they've expended their effort, then they give up on them and they go on the stack over here and then nothing much happens, right? Or maybe they think they're really sophisticated and they've got, their organization has software or they've, bought somebody's software that has pre-templated. Remember the, no worse than anybody else, pre-templated emails written by somebody else that are generic financial planning advice that then kind of drips on the prospects for a while or forever. And, I think there's massive amounts of money in most cases through prospects that have developed for the practice that just don't ever get converted. And one is a lot of those people, if they raise their hand today, you may convert them in a year. We had a poll of our clients. Remember this, Greg? 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had about 40 people on a group meeting.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this phenomenon of sometimes how long it takes, and they start chipping in, and one said, "Yeah, I was on your list for 9 years. I was on your list for 7 years. I was on your list for 3 years," right? And as the person trying to make the sale, you go, "Oh my God, how long does it take for these guys to get off their ass?" But the reality is, David Ogilvy talked about the moving parade of humanity, and what he meant was different things are happening in different people's stage of life. They're going from being married to divorced to married. Their, kids are off to college. They have new kids that they're worrying about. They're getting ready a few years from retirement. They've retired. All kinds of things are happening, right? And you've got to be in front of them at the right time, at the right stage, that they're ready. And oftentimes they'll raise their hand and pay attention to you if you're interesting, and if you're in front of them for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, or to use my example, 3, 6, 7, 9 years. And if you're not staying in front of them, and I don't mean you just drip on them generic emails, but you're staying in front of them with webinars and Zoom meetings and email and social media contact and direct mail and all kinds of other stuff, they forget you exist. And the more and more and more you stay in front of them with good but interesting material, the more credible you become to them and the more, frankly, likable you become if you do it right. What would you add to that, Greg?
Yeah, and I mean, you've got to understand that when they make a decision to change their investment advisor or decide that they're going to be serious about investing their money, those are kind of two just big decision points. Maybe they're just throwing their money in their company's 401k, or maybe they're just putting their money in passbook savings, or maybe they're not putting any money away at all, or maybe they've got a liquidity event that they sold a business or sold a house or sold something else. So those are events that may happen, and they're going to happen at a specific point in time, and you may have gotten in front of them at any other given time. So to kind of say the same thing you just said in another way, to the idea that you're in front of them at the exact moment in time when they may make that decision, it's hard to imagine that those two things correlate. So when you're in front of them and you talk to them or you do an event, that might be something that interests them. That doesn't mean that's related to the specific event that really would be a big time to be in front of them. And not only that, even with your own clients, so a lot of your own clients that are currently working with you, they may have some of these events happen, and they may just not think of you. They may think of another person to invest their money with, or work with on an annuity, or work with on some other type of product that
or go buy a meme stock, and
yeah, exactly. And they may not be thinking of you because you're not in front of them enough. That's what we notice with a lot of our clients too. So the same principle applies, and we see a lot of our clients not, when we start working with them, not maximizing their impact with their own clients. So they're getting, instead of a small amount, a lot. But Mindy, you were going to say something?
Well, I just wanted to back on that. I get a couple of calls a week at least with somebody who has a financial advisor, and they don't know how to contact him. And so they somehow come across our ad. And I literally talked to a person the other night who was like, well, he kind of looks like the guy in your picture, but I thought his name was Richard. He has brown hair. And I ended up finding this Morgan Stanley rep for the person on the phone. But it's really sad to me, the number of people I talk to who have a financial advisor and have no idea how to get in touch with them.
Yeah, and we're not marketing. And we're not marketing for that at all. We're working with you guys, but yet we're getting calls because people are desperate to find their darn financial advisors. What's the stat? Last we looked, 60% of people are unhappy with their financial advisor, their current people. So that means of the people on this call, there's a good chance that a lot of your clients are unhappy with you. They just haven't told you yet. And they don't tell you by having a nice long discussion with you. They tell you by just leaving.
Yeah. Well, and out of that stat, and that was a survey just last year, I think half of those were actively thinking about leaving, and probably a chunk of those can't remember who their current guy is, so they're trying to figure out how to leave him, based on what Minnie just said. But the other thing that happens with that stat, Greg, is it's the one that we've known forever, is if you track why customers leave any business, and you ask them questions about how was the service, were they nice, was the facility clean, whatever. Number one, always, and it's the majority, is perceived apathy. Is they just feel like that business doesn't know or doesn't care whether they're going to be there or not. Greg, you know how I've been ragging on Starbucks recently, but so I do my Starbucks run at the drive-through that I can see from my house. And yesterday I go through, and it's a blizzard, and I get a tall mocha, and I take it back, sit at my desk, start a meeting, take a sip, and it's a vanilla latte with soy something, or I don't know. It's
right.
Foo-foo. Different thing that I don't drink, right? Well, I go to the drive-through, and I do my same order, and the lady on the microphone says, "You got the wrong drink yesterday, didn't you, Steve?" I said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, I did." "Okay, I'll get your mocha. This one's on us. Sorry about that." Well, okay, I don't know how many thousands of people go through that drive-through. Now, I'm a regular, and I spend a lot of money there. But it's the drive-through, for God's sake, right? And the first thing that comes, through the speaker for the lady at the drive-through is, "We screwed up yesterday. Let me fix it for you today. I apologize." Well, now that's good service, right? So, for all of my ragging about, about them in the last couple of years, I got to give them kudos when they deserve kudos. That's good, right? But what we see in so many practices, part of the money laying around on the floor is they'll say to us, all of my traffic comes from referrals, or most of my traffic comes from referrals, or most, my best new clients come from referrals. Okay, all that may be true, but their follow-up with their existing clients oftentimes is abysmal. And if you're meeting with somebody, let's say twice a year, and then 2 or 3 months after your meeting, they're on the golf course, or they're having lunch, or they're at the office talking to somebody who would be a perfect fit for the services that you provide, you're not top of mind awareness, right? I like always like using different industry examples. I like the Joe Girard. He was Guinness Book of World Records leading car salesman forever. I mean, he sold more cars than anybody else. Bread and butter Chevrolet. But he had this routine where everyone who ever bought a car from him got a card in the mail from him every month. So they got a St. Patrick's Day card, they got a Mother's Day card, they got a Father's Day card, they got a Christmas, July 4th, pick Labor Day, Memorial Day, whatever it might be, or just, for no reason.
And those unusual ones matter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Much more than they get a Christmas card.
Yeah. The Christmas cards are irrelevant.
Exactly. Do a Thanksgiving card rather than a Christmas card. But it's all those interesting, weird things because you're the only one in front of them, right? But he knew, one, that if he stayed in front of them all the time, that when the daughter, the niece, the wife, husband, girlfriend, whatever, needed a car, he was going to be front of mind awareness. Number two, in that industry, they know that people have what you would call an itch cycle, right? More or less, after about 3 years, you buy a new car. 3 years later, more or less, you're in the mood to trade it for something. That's been industry standard forever and ever and ever. And I can't tell you, I've had in Greg, I've spent a lot of money on cars over the years. I've had exactly one guy who ever paid any attention to any of that stuff, right? Who ever called me again. I had Hector at Stevenson Imports, Porsche Jaguar, who, a new car came in I might like, he'd give me a call. I'd get periodic notes in the mail from him, one thing or another. Nobody else, right? I had the BMW dealership here. I bought 3 cars for them. And to be fair, it's BMW Mini, so I bought a Mini. And then a couple years later, I bought another Mini. And then I bought a 650 iX, and I bought a X5 5.0. Never heard from the salesperson again. By the way, same salesperson sold me the Mini as sold me the BMWs, right? Never heard from him again. Yeah. Never got a call, an email, a letter, a note. Periodically, I get generic stuff from their service department. We got a 50% discount on your, service this month or something like that. But that's it, right? Just moronic. And for advisors, there should be something. Go ahead.
Yeah, and one thing that might be important to point out is to do the math on that. Mm-hmm. In their case, they make less money per vehicle than, I'm not massively familiar with what the rates are they make per sale. It's not as big as you guys get per client.
No.
But even for them, if they sent out, they make a few $100 per car they sell. But on a BMW or a higher end car, that's more. But to send, that batch of cards that we're talking about, maybe 12 cards a year, that's going to cost them, if it's a postcard, that's going to cost them $12, including the cards, especially even if they get them printed up and they've got some kind of customized printing. Maybe that cost them $12 to do. Let's say $1 card if we're going to be a little bit expensive on that. So it's going to cost them $12. So if they did that and the person bought a car, if every 5th person bought a car every so many years, if you do the math on that, maybe they spend $100 every time they sell a car. So they're ended up making $300-400. Their ROI on that may not be as good, but for you guys, that ROI could be massive, especially if they continue to increase how much they invest with you, or if they start bringing in their friends and family, and again, the ones who are investing in higher dollar amounts, they're going to be having friends that have higher dollar amounts.
Yeah.
And one thing we have a little bit of a discussion with people that say they get their business by referrals. And we have the next conversation, which is, yeah, but only my top 10% of clients are the ones that make up 80% of my assets under management. Well, but if you get your business by referrals, then you're going to continue to replicate that 80-10%, that 80% of your 80-20 rule kind of deal.
Mhm.
That's how it's always going to be. So what we need to do is get a lot more referrals from the top 10% of their clients. Those are the ones we need to get referrals from, and those are the ones to spend more money on, and those are the ones to do more with, and get more ones that replicate those guys, which we can do, and we can help them, make a big difference in that space. And that might be the niche of market that they want to be focusing on, instead of, it's not that we don't care about the other clients, we do, and we want to also take care of those guys in the same way you're talking about, but there might be more that we do with that group.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then, so what we would always suggest is that the way you get referrals is you have a variety of referral systems, right? And certainly one is when I'm doing my meeting with a client, let's say a semi-annual or quarterly or annually, whatever it might be, I ask. Now you have to ask appropriately and effectively, and I think I stole from Tom Hopkins. Isolate faces, help them isolate who in their hobbies, bowling league, whatever it might be, who at their church, who in their neighborhood, who at work, etc., might be a good fit, giving them the criteria, all of that kind of thing. But what we find is what really works, in addition to that, is having client events that they feel comfortable inviting their friends to. That can be a live event. One of our clients does a thing at his friend's art gallery, and they invite their clients. They're welcome to bring their friends, and then they make connections that way. Another one is in San Francisco, so they use a winery in the area, and they have a client event.
With Advisor Wealth
And I'm
Mastery,
gonna-
and I was just calling to say thank you for
Mindy there.
There you go. Mindy's muted. Anyway, but or they can be, in your conference room. They can be informational on a specific subject, or they could be Zoom, a webinar on Zoom, whatever you might want it to be. But having monthly or multiple times a month on bigger practices that we work with, we'll have 2 or 3 different events that are designed for clients to bring their friends per month, focused on different demographics and different issues. People who are getting ready to retire, people who have been retired for a while, people who are young families, with children looking forward to the future, or college planning. But we can have multiple different things per month that are focused on different groups of people that they're willing to come to. And by the way, it's amazing how much work people think this is, right? You sit down, many of you already are in companies, like I know I work with a lot of Northwestern Mutual folks, is they already have most of this stuff laid out in PowerPoints, in their, I'm going to forget the online system, but they already have meetings in PowerPoint that you can just pull it up, use it in PowerPoint. It's already been approved by compliance. It's all good to go, right? But the amount of effort on this, once you get going, and frankly, you put together 3 or 4 of these, and you're just going to rotate them. Maybe a few more than that, but you're just going to rotate them. You're going to give them a little different names, but you're just going to rotate them through. It's really easy to do. But being in front of your clients, giving them live events where they're comfortable bringing their friends, is a great way to have referrals. Now, there's a lot of details behind it. Greg, we see most people who do this don't do a good job of converting to leads. And we can walk you through all the steps of capturing the lead contact, automating the follow-up, turning the leads into qualified prospects, turning the qualified prospects into appointments, and so forth. But that's one thing. The other thing that every advisor should be doing, which keeps their clients engaged, stays with top-of-mind awareness, but also gives them tools to pass along to their friends, is having pass-along tools. And Greg, talk about what we mean by that. Describe what pass-along tools are.
Well, pass along tools would be, if you meet with one of your clients and you'd like to have them refer friends, a lot of times somebody just tells them, hey, or gives them a sheet of paper, or gives them their business cards and asks them to refer their friends. But having a pass along tool like a book that you've authored, or even a white paper or some information, or you know that their friend might be. We just had somebody we talked to yesterday that was asked by a grandparent to what information they would give to a teenager about financial planning. So if they had a pass along tool like a white paper about how to talk to teenagers about financial planning, that would have been a great tool to give to the grandparent that they could pass along to the parent of the teenager. But then what we would do is in that particular case, we'd suggest that they get their information and set up a meeting. That would be a very specific one where you could directly set up a meeting from that point of view. But imagine you had a book, and a lot of times people, I think, get scared away from that, thinking that it's going to be a $20,000 investment, or they're going to have to sit there and write, and they don't like to write. That can be very inexpensive. It can be very easy to do, and we don't need to go through the whole process today. We've got some good companies. We work with Red Publishing, and we work with some other companies to do that. And whether you do it yourself or other ways, it's not a big project to do something like that, whether it's a white paper or a book, but having something to give them. The other thing is, and rather than let me contrast that with somebody giving them like a calendar with their name on it, or a tchotchke kind of thing that's got like a pen with their business name on it. Those kind of things are pretty useless. They don't speak to your authority. Whereas if you had a white paper that speaks to your expertise in the area of retirement, or the area of in the teenager thing, specialty in the setting up not retirement programs, but college funding programs, things like that. Those would be different white papers you could have that, again, are pretty easy to provide. Fisher does a good job of having some of those materials for their people.
Let's give an example though of how simple it might be. We're going to do this webinar today. We've gone about 42 minutes. We'll probably be another 15 or so. Zoom is automatically transcribing it, right? But what we could do is send that, or send the original over to rev.com. They'll put a human being on taking the machine transcription and cleaning it up a little bit. Then we could send it over to Fiverr and give it to a writer and say, make this readable, because the way we're talking and debating back and forth is different. $100, $200, they've made it readable, right? Now we've got a report. And so we've got a report, and we've got a video recording, but we also have the audio track. We have the machine transcript, and then we have a written report that would go with that. Now, if we did that 5 or 10 times, we've got 5 or 10 chapters in a book, and you bind them all together, you got a book, right? But you can create this content in any number of different ways. Some of the highest profile books written by politicians, business leaders, one thing or another. Usually what happens is a writer comes and interviews them and then writes it right from the interviews, or sometimes it's the celebrity talks it into a dictaphone or the phone or whatever, and then hands it off to somebody to write it, and then they check off with it. But I think, Greg, what people have this idea of is, I'm Stephen King, and I'm sitting at my desk for 3 hours a day for a year to create the magnum opus. And that's not what we're talking about at all, right? We're talking about basically having, and I have a ton of them here on my desk. Well, none that are a good example, I guess. But you get the idea. Having, it could be a 50-page, 40-page, 60-page book that gets put together, and it's something that each of your clients could get 5 of them as pass along. And you could do one on college planning. You could do one on retirement planning. Hell, if you were in an area where Procter and Gamble or Vonage or here CenturyLink was your biggest employer, Amazon. We got a client that's right next to Amazon's headquarters. It could be, the 10 things every Amazon employee should know about your, investment and retirement opportunities. And I mean, that would go over like a charm. You give that to 3 or 4 of your executives that you have that are Amazon staff, and they'll pass it along. You work with HR, and maybe you become the go-to guy or gal. for helping their staff understand their retirement options. You could run ads targeted at Amazon headquarters. Hell, nowadays with geo-targeting, you could tweet ad and Facebook ad and linked ad all of the Amazon people in the headquarters down the street from you. There's all kinds of things you can do once you get creative with that.
Well, and that goes along with one thing that we do when we start. You said, where do we start when we get starting to work with somebody, is making sure that we clear on your target and ideal client.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of people saying, well, yeah, I just want to work with everybody that has a lot of money.
Yeah.
And how that's not a very good strategy. And this can go along with that, it being more specific and targeted with who you're going to really go after.
You bet. The other thing that we tend to start and look at for advisors is we look at their website, their web traffic, their website conversion, and we look at their LinkedIn profile and their social media presence. And I think that people miss the idea, especially after being stressed out about compliance and different agencies not wanting to use testimonials and so forth, is they miss the fact that essentially anybody who's going to work with you is going to go Google you, and they're going to look for your online presence. And the first thing is they better find you, right? But the second thing is they better find good stuff about you. And the next is there better be something interesting and memorable, right? If I go Google you and I end up with the generic page that your company puts up with nothing at all interesting, Mindy, how many advisors have we talked to that all have exactly the same picture?
Oh,
I mean, the face is different,
Like,
but
Right.
the pose, the background, the outfit, the tie. I mean, it's like we were talking to somebody yesterday, and they're very distinguished looking, very interested, well-spoken, had an interesting office setup, background, one thing or another. And I'm looking at their LinkedIn profile and their website going, this bland, know-nothing, boring person on this LinkedIn profile is not the person I'm talking to. They're doing themselves a massive disservice by making it just boring and uninteresting and one thing or another. The other thing we find, Greg, and you're now a full-blown expert on this. Ironically, it's how we started working together to begin with, as I wrote the book on internet marketing how long has it been now? 23 years ago.
Yeah, in the beginning stages.
Yeah, back when it was Alta Vista, GoTo, that became Overture with Yahoo, etc. But but most of the websites that we see, one, they do a horrible job at being bait for the search engines, right? So they have very little to entice Google to find you. Number two is, if you were buying clicks, they do a very bad job of having any reason to convert. And what we mean by convert is somebody going from looking at the page to giving you contact information. And then, and anybody we work with or talk to, I go and opt in on their website. I got to tell you, most of them don't do anything with that. If they have an opt-in form of some sort, usually I get thanks for subscribing. Okay.
And you didn't subscribe to anything, and there's no interesting stuff to subscribe to, or they're over worried about, triple opting in. It's irritating.
Yeah. Or they're worried about they're getting spammed. So you have to do all this verification. I hate that one. How many red light, how many traffic lights are in?
Yeah, they put caption in way too many captcha things. Those are called captchas. And exactly. You guys don't need that. If you're doing lead generation, you're trying to get more people to opt in, not restrict people from opting in. And in very, very bad lead generation design on every corner. And you're right. I mean, the idea that number one, that they don't show any personality, that they look like everybody. I think your term for that is they look like the JCPenney suit behind the oak desk, that's what everybody ends up looking like. And you're going to look like that if you use your company's standard page for yourself. Yeah, that makes sense. You generally need to have another presence on the web. And for a lot of you guys that we've talked to, you started with one company, you're with a different company, you're with a different company. Your presence can doesn't have to travel with the company you're working with, or it can. It's okay if you're with, some of our best clients have been with their same company for 30 years. That's great too. But your presence is different, and Google needs to be able to find you. And once they do, as you said, it needs to convert into something that turns into a lead, and that needs to have the right bait, so that somebody feels comfortable getting information. And that goes along with what you just said earlier with some sort of pass along tool. There's some information or reason for them to believe you're an authority, and different from everybody else, because otherwise, why aren't everybody's got the alphabet soup of characters behind their name, a CFP or whatever. I mean, that doesn't really make you special. That just makes you adequate. That makes you adequate to do the job. I mean, and if you didn't put those letters behind your name, they're going to assume that you're adequate to do the job anyway. What matters is that you show that you're special in some way. How are you different from the rest of the people, both to Google, both to the search engines, and to anybody that lands on your page? Why would they provide information, or why would they call you? I mean, it's great if they also call you. That happens too. We had a question on what I'm drinking. This is amino energy drink. I drink a couple of times. Somebody asked that, so we got
no alcohol content.
But I think the other question, who was it? George.
Unsweetened no water.
Yeah. George Davis the fifth asked. He's a self-starter, non-captive agent, and he's just starting out. But one thing you should do is get the package. I mean, we're not pitching that because we probably give that away at cost really during our seminar today, really. But there's enough stuff in there that would give you a good foundation, a solid.
Well, let's talk about what our self-interest is for that. Our self-interest for this box, which I laid down.
I've got mine here.
Yeah. Here's our self-interest for the box.
This is it's actually very heavy, and there really is a lot of stuff in here.
All of which is available digitally as well.
Yeah.
I had somebody say, does anybody still have DVD players? It's like, well, I don't know. I don't watch DVD.
And DVD and digital and on USB and in every format you can imagine, just in case. Yeah. And printed.
Yeah. And by the way, my pet peeve against digitally delivered exclusively products, and I buy a bunch of them. I subscribe to every high-level marketer in the world, sometimes just to watch what they're doing to sell their stuff. But I don't know about you, but as soon as I subscribe to somebody's digital thing, I immediately forget that it exists, right? Yeah, I've got the highest level access to all of Dan Kennedy's archive of information marketing stuff, and Russell Brunson's stuff, and Hearn and Kern. I mean, you can just go down the list. Well, what you'd prefer to have with your client is, even if they read your book on Kindle, I'd rather have them with the book on their desk using it as a coaster, or the package of DVDs stacked on the edge of their kitchen table, just so that they remember that it's there and remember to go back to it. It's like, Greg, you and I read Wall Street Journal religiously, but I get it in the driveway, and half the articles I've already read online. But if I don't get it physically, I forget to read it digitally. It's that just there's a different dynamic. Plus, if you're targeting people who are approaching retirement age, they may be a lot more likely to be fluent at put a DVD in the player or put a CD in the car than they are at streaming on their iPhone tethered to their Bluetooth radio while they're driving around, like I would be more likely to do. It
adds. Let me add another component. It adds value to it.
Yeah,
it adds value to what you're giving people too. There's value. It really legitimately is valuable.
Oh yeah. But where I was going with that was our self-interest. You had the package up there. Our self-interest is somebody who's new, starting out, somebody who's under, say, $250,000 a year in revenue, are too small to work with us. And what we're trying to do is provide something at a more or less cost, where we can rev you up, and I guarantee if you just go through the package of that information, you'll be in the top 5% of the industry, probably the top 1% of the industry from a knowledge-based standpoint. And if you go through all that information and implement, you'll be, well in our range of being able to work with you and help you accelerate pretty quickly. So our self-interest is we create something for people who are not yet at the point where they're ready to work with us, knowing that many people won't implement, but those who do are the ones that we want to work with, and those who really go through the material and implement are going to be ready for our help once they get into the $250,000, $300,000 a year revenue range. And as far as advisors who are already at $500,000, $1 million, $2 million revenue, oftentimes there's the theory that I think most highly successful people run from is the theory of the slight edge. Oftentimes with any and everything you do, there are incremental improvements that could be done in process that have 10, 20, 30-fold improvements in results. Greg, we've seen people go from they do an activity, they spend the same amount of time, we add a little tweak to their process, and we go from they get 2 leads to they get 30 leads. Or they go from they might have gotten 1 client every 3 times they did that activity to they get 5, 10, 15 clients every time they do the activity. And oftentimes it's just an informed eye looking over your shoulder to see what the 1 or 2 missing things are that you're doing. But we're gonna run out of time here in a minute. But what I would say is for especially the independents is start with the that package, extraordinaryadvisormarketing.com. For those of you who are in our category, give Mindy a call. Mindy, your number is 303
808-8719.
Yep.
I also want to mention that too, if you're ramping up and that 597 is, you're kind of going, whoa, we do have a payment option on that.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you have to break it up among 3 credit cards in 4 months, go right ahead. But I might add on all of this stuff. Tony Robbins has a great line, which is, "If you can't, you must." And and what he means by that is, anytime you're at a point where you financially can't afford things that are necessary for your growth, that's when you must do it, right? And what keeps failures is when they use limitations, whether it be financial or mental limitations or perceived barriers, to just stay in place and not do anything. So if you can't, you must. You really must get on that track. Now, most of the people that we have who are either watching the replay or watch who are live on here are in the Mindy. What was most were in the $500,000 to $1 million category, and an awful lot were in the $1 million and up. Sometimes $2 to $5 million category, and that's all advisors who are in the range of our sweet spot. We're great at taking a $500,000 practice, turning it into $1 million practice, turning it into a $2 million practice, turning it into a $4 million practice. And if you don't know, and it's probably pretty obvious, at each stage in that growth, you have different issues you have to work with. Ultimately, everybody has the same issue, which is fishing the right pond, bringing in the right quality of clients, number 1, and then number 2, doing the activities of the business behind the scenes through employees or through joint venture staff, one thing or another, and not having to work their ass off all the time. And really the highest performers we see are the people who are making the personal contact with the client, sitting down and closing the sale, handing off the back end management and handing off the front end, tracking them down, setting the appointments and qualifying. So then you end up with a very manageable practice where you can personally close 10, 15, 20 new clients a month that are high-level people and build a personal relationship in part through mail communication, email, but live events, online and offline, where they really feel like they have a personal relationship with you without you having to have 100 conversations every month to maintain that. Greg, what would you add before we wrap up?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to take some action right now. Yeah. Take some action right now. Whatever you learned from what we talked about today, which was pretty broad spectrum. I mean, we covered a lot of stuff, and we can certainly help you in wherever level you're at. If you're, kind of below with the grouping that we that we talked about, get the package so that you can take some action and start with the 1 or 2 things that are going to get you the best return on the investment of time or money right now. The second thing is if you are, within our group that we work with, set up a time to talk to us so we can help you with the next couple things that you should do. If it makes sense for us to work with you, that's great. If not, that's okay too. But we'd like to get to set up a time to talk to you so that we can, and Mindy will be reaching out to you guys individually so that we can meet and figure out what those next couple things are. Because I think that's what's hard sometimes to figure out with all the stuff that you should be doing. And as any entrepreneur, there's an infinite amount of things you feel like you should be doing next. What's the 1 or 2 things that get you the best return on investment of your time, which is the most valuable asset, and some money, if you're going to put some money in, but really your time, what's the most important thing to do next? And that's what will help you figure out. And then we'll see where we go next.
Yeah, and I kind of skipped over this. This is the contents of the package, but it's missed opportunities, how to find and scoop up that money, how to know your clients, standing out from the cloud, becoming the expert. And I don't mean, alphabet soup. I mean how to really position yourself effectively. Various referral systems and what works really well right now in the current market. How to promote and create live events, both online and offline. Separately, online events, fixing your website, search engine optimization, and website results, direct mail, content marketing, which is a big function of search marketing, but that includes podcasts and YouTube channels and so forth. Effective email marketing, most people do a horrible job, and especially the pre-templated, done-for-you stuff is just bland, boring, and ineffective in most cases. Effective Facebook and LinkedIn marketing, effective and unique direct mail. So that's the content of that package. From the standpoint of the people who are in the higher categories, have an established practice, we can help you double or triple your net, and that's our focus: is double or triple a net, and actually cut back on the amount of time and effort you have to do on managing the business. So for those people who fit in that category, you can go to advisorwealthmastery.com for a complete package of free information, or you can give Miss Mindy here a call and she can schedule a time with us. And we're happy to set a time with anybody personally to give you some feedback on your unique situation as well.
Yeah, let's do that.